September 27th, 1941. Richmond, California. The first sparks fly before dawn. Showers of molten orange illuminate the steel skeleton of what will soon become a ship. Liberty Ship Hull, Number 1. The rhythmic hammering of rivets echoes across the shipyard, blending with the roar of welding torches and the barked orders of foremen trying to be heard over the din. Floodlights cast long shadows over the docks, where men and women in overalls and helmets move with mechanical precision, each part of a massive industrial organism that never sleeps. Henry Kaiser stands at the edge of the slipway, hands clasped behind his back, the smell of burnt metal and salt air heavy around him. He's not a shipbuilder, not by trade. He's an engineer, a construction man, the kind who built dams and highways, not fleets. Yet here he is, watching a new kind of war machine take shape, not of guns or armor, but of steel and speed. The year before, Kaiser had been a contractor on the Hoover Dam, a feat once deemed impossible. Now, as the world burns from London to Manila, the United States calls for another miracle, one of logistics. Ships are dying faster than they can be built. German U-boats prowl the Atlantic like wolves, sinking tankers and freighters faster than the Allied supply lines can replace them. Britain is starving. The oceans, the arteries of war, are hemorrhaging. President Roosevelt's call had been clear. We must be the arsenal of democracy. Kaiser took it literally. As he surveys the yard, the scale of his vision is staggering. Massive cranes loom over the docks, swinging prefabricated hull sections into place. Trucks thunder past carrying steel plates already cut and drilled, each one tagged with a number and destination, like pieces in a mechanical puzzle. On the periphery, barracks rise beside the water, hastily built dormitories for the thousands of men and women flooding in from across the country. "Get that section lined up," a foreman shouts. A welder sparks his torch. The air fills with light. Kaiser turns to his chief foreman, Charles "Red" Bosworth, a grizzled veteran of West Coast construction. "Red," Kaiser says, voice steady. "We're not just building ships. We're building a system." Bosworth nods, watching the skeletal ship grow inch by inch. "Ain't seen anything like it, sir." "Neither have I," Kaiser admits. He checks his watch. The shift has only just begun. But in this yard, time has already changed. There are no 8-hour days here, no weekends, no breaks. The lights will stay on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The men will rotate in 3 shifts. The steel will never cool. In the background, the shipyard whistle blows. A deep, resonant note that rolls across the bay like thunder. It signals the start of the next crew's arrival. Thousands of workers pouring through the gates in coveralls and boots, lunch pails in hand. Among them are people who, a year ago, would never have dreamed of working beside the ocean. Farmers from Iowa, carpenters from Oklahoma, women from the Dust Bowl who have never touched a welding torch. Inside the workers' cafeteria, a sign hangs above the entrance. "Every day saved is a ship saved. Every ship saved is a convoy that lives." The message isn't just morale, it's math. At the start of the war, it took nearly 230 days to build a single cargo ship. By the end of 1942, Kaiser's team would cut that number in half. And soon after, they would break the barrier of belief altogether. That night, as floodlights bathe the docks, Kaiser walks the yard alone. Steam rises from the welders' torches. The ships tower like half-formed giants, their hulls glowing under the industrial glare. Somewhere in the darkness, a whistle blows again, and a crane swings its load into position. He watches, calculating, dreaming. "If we can build a dam in the middle of the desert," he says softly to himself, We can build ships faster than they can sink them. He doesn't know it yet, but within 2 years, that dream will come true in ways that will redefine the very idea of production. Because what Henry Kaiser is building tonight isn't just a shipyard. He's building a revolution. January 1942. The war has shifted into full gear. Across the Atlantic, Britain bleeds. In the Pacific, the smoke from Pearl Harbor has barely cleared. The United States has gone from hesitant neutrality to total mobilization. And its greatest weakness is painfully clear: logistics. Every gun, every tank, every ration crate meant for Europe or Asia must cross an ocean teeming with submarines. The Navy needs ships, but traditional shipyards, with their craftsmen and slow, meticulous methods, can't keep pace. The Navy Bureau of Ships calls it an unsolvable problem. Henry Kaiser calls it an opportunity. At his Richmond Shipyard No. 1, the morning shift begins before sunrise. The fog hangs low over San Francisco Bay as a whistle pierces the dawn, summoning thousands of workers. Men and women flood through the gates, some still rubbing sleep from their eyes, others singing, coffee thermoses in hand. The air smells of salt, smoke, and ambition. A supervisor waves his clipboard, shouting over the clamor, "Section B7 to slipway 3. Keep those welders moving." This isn't a shipyard anymore. It's a factory, one unlike any the world has ever seen. Instead of crafting ships from keel to mast like artisans, Kaiser's engineers have broken the process apart, transforming it into a series of modular stages. Hull sections are assembled in different zones, then transported to the main dock like pieces of a puzzle. Pre-cut steel panels slide down rail tracks to waiting cranes. Riveting teams work side by side with welders, electricians, and pipe fitters. Each has a clock to beat, and every clock feeds another. "Don't think of a ship," Kaiser tells a group of managers gathered in his office. "Think of a product line. A shipyard is just a factory that happens to float." He draws diagrams on a chalkboard. Rectangles for hull sections, arrows showing assembly flows, circles for work shifts. His voice is firm but not loud. "We don't build ships," he says. "We assemble them." Some of the older shipwrights scoffed at the idea when he first proposed it. One called it mass-producing elephants. Another muttered, "You can't rush the sea." But Kaiser's method begins to prove them wrong. By March, the shipyard launches its 10th Liberty ship, and it's finished in less than 30 days. The papers call it a miracle of speed. Kaiser simply calls it proof of concept. To the men and women on the line, the Liberty ship becomes something more than a vessel. It's a symbol of defiance. They call it the ship that beats the U-boat. Inside the welding bays, sparks rain like silver snow. Women in bandanas and goggles, Rosies, as they've come to be known, guide their torches across the seams of thick steel plates. Their faces glow orange in the reflected light. Across the yard, cranes rumble and whistles blare, signaling another module completed, another piece locked into place. A sign above the assembly line reads, "The faster we build, the sooner they come home." By April, the modular system is working so efficiently that construction time drops to under 20 days. The numbers are staggering. What once took half a year is now completed before the next payroll cycle. Newspapers send photographers. Newsreels capture the scene. Welders striking arcs in perfect rhythm, cranes lifting 100-ton sections, foremen shouting over the din. The camera pans to the shipyard sign. Kaiser Shipyards, Richmond, California. The narrator's voice declares, "A new kind of battle is being fought here, not with bullets, but with blueprints." The footage soon reaches Washington. Roosevelt himself screens it in the Oval Office. He leans forward, smiling slightly as he watches the ship sliding into the water. Kaiser, he says, turning to an aide, is what happens when America believes in impossible math. That night, back in Richmond, the lights never dim. The sound of progress fills the air. Hammers, engines, the rhythmic pounding of rivets, echoing like a heartbeat. And in the control office, Henry Kaiser studies the next set of blueprints. A new idea forming in his mind. If we can build a ship in 20 days, he says quietly to his assistant, why not 10? The man hesitates. 10 days, sir? That's madness. Kaiser grins. Then we'll build madness. He looks out the window toward the glowing shipyard below. Cranes arcing against the dark, workers swarming like ants over steel. And in that moment, the impossible starts to look inevitable. Because in Kaiser's world, the clock doesn't measure time. It measures will. November 1942, Richmond, California. The rain has been falling for days, drumming against the corrugated roofs of the shipyard sheds, turning the ground into a slick gray soup of mud and steel filings. Yet, the work hasn't slowed. Not for a second. In the glare of floodlights, the Liberty ship, Robert E. Peary, is taking shape. Welders crouch under tarps to shield their torches from the downpour. Sparks fly in sheets of orange light, briefly illuminating faces streaked with sweat and rain. Cranes swing massive prefabricated hull sections through the mist, guided by men shouting through bullhorns, their voices barely audible above the roar. At the center of it all stands Henry Kaiser, soaked to the bone, wearing a hard hat and a heavy coat, stopwatch in hand. He isn't here for ceremony. He's here for proof. Kaiser has spent the last year driving his shipyards, now 6 across the West Coast, to their breaking point. He's tested every idea, every shortcut, every innovation that might shave hours, then minutes, from the clock. The modular system has evolved into something closer to choreography than construction. Each piece is timed, each shift synchronized. Every worker knows exactly what must be done and when. Now, he's decided to attempt the unthinkable. A full Liberty ship built from keel to launch in less than a week. To the Navy, it's a publicity stunt. To Kaiser, it's a declaration. The experiment begins at dawn. Keel laid, the foreman calls. The stopwatch starts. Day 1. The first hull sections arrive on flat cars, pre-welded and coated. Teams of riggers guide them into place while cranes thunder overhead. Workers move like clockwork, their movements rehearsed to seconds. A banner unfurls from the scaffolding. We're building a record and a promise. By nightfall, the skeleton of the Robert E. Peary rises against the skyline like a monument of raw steel. Floodlights flicker as welders continue through the storm. The air tastes of ozone and burnt iron. Day 2. Prefabricated bulkheads and deck sections are lifted into place. A supervisor yells, "Section 22 secured." And another voice echoes, "Section 23 ready." The sound of impact wrenches and rivet guns fills the air. The Liberty ship is already half-formed, her lines unmistakable. Kaiser walks the yard, his boots splashing through puddles. He stops to speak with a young welder, a woman no older than 20, her bandana soaked, her face smeared with soot. "You ever built a ship before?" he asks. She smiles faintly. "Not before last week." Kaiser grins. "You'll have built 2 by Monday." By day 3, the pace has become ferocious. Entire sections arrive already wired, plumbed, and painted. A radical innovation that saves hundreds of man-hours. Forklifts dart between cranes. Supply trucks roar in and out like a constant artery. At night, floodlights turn the shipyard into a blinding cathedral of industry. 3 days in and she's watertight, the supervisor says, disbelief in his voice. Day 4. The final superstructure rises. The ship's funnel, emblazoned with the insignia of the U.S. Merchant Marine, is bolted into place. Teams swarm the decks, welding, painting, installing the last fittings. Overhead, a sign hangs from a crane hook. The Liberty Fleet fights for freedom. Build fast, sail strong. By now, reporters have arrived. War correspondents from Life and Newsweek, Navy photographers, even a team from Movietone News. They film as Kaiser, his stopwatch still running, oversees the final inspection. He doesn't smile. He just nods once. Day 5, 8:30 a.m. The crowds gather at the slipway. Shipyard workers, engineers, families, Navy brass. The rain has stopped. The gray clouds part just enough to let a pale sunlight gleam off the hull of the Robert E. Peary. A brass band begins to play. A woman in a dark coat steps forward, bottle in hand. "I christen the Robert E. Peary," she declares, smashing it against the bow. The ship slides into the water to a roar of applause. Workers climb onto scaffolds, waving their helmets. Some laugh, some cry. 5 days, 4 hours, 34 minutes. A Liberty ship, born from nothing but steel and sweat. Built in the time it once took to finish a single hull plate. For Kaiser, it's not just a record. It's a revelation. He turns to a Navy official beside him. "There you have it," he says, "the production line of democracy." The officer shakes his head, smiling in disbelief. "You're changing the way wars are fought, Mr. Kaiser." Kaiser looks back at the ship, gleaming, alive, afloat. "Not wars," he replies quietly, "the way the world builds." That night, the headlines blaze across America. Liberty ship built in 5 days. Industrial miracle in Richmond. But inside the shipyard, there are no celebrations, no banners. The whistle blows, and the next shift clocks in. The next keel is already waiting. Because for Henry Kaiser and his army of builders, speed is no longer a goal. It's the standard. Spring, 1943. The Pacific breeze carries the smell of salt and steel through Richmond's shipyards. But something new rides the wind now. Pride. Where once there was disbelief, there is rhythm. Where there was chaos, there is order. Kaiser's shipyards have become living machines. Their movements synchronized, their purpose absolute. The Liberty ships now slide into the water in a steady, unstoppable rhythm. One every few days, sometimes faster. The docks never rest. It's not just engineering, it's evolution. At sunrise, a convoy of buses screeches to a halt at the gates. Workers spill out. Men, women, veterans, immigrants, farmers turned welders, mothers turned riveters. They stream through the checkpoints and vanish into the vast industrial maze of cranes, scaffolds, and sparks. Steam rises from the boilers, and the sound of 1,000 tools fills the air. A deafening industrial symphony that never ends. To an outsider, it looks like bedlam. To Henry Kaiser, it is music. He walks along the catwalk above Slipway 6, clipboard in hand, his white hard hat shining under the floodlights. "We're building faster, but we're not cutting corners," he tells his foreman. "We're cutting waste. Every movement is measured, every delay noted. A broken crane delays the entire orchestra, so Kaiser builds backups. Welders lose time fetching tools, so he installs tool lockers at every station. Workers burn out, so he builds daycares, cafeterias, and hospitals inside the yard itself. The innovation that baffles Washington isn't just speed, it's humanity. Happy workers build faster ships, Kaiser tells a visiting Navy inspector. A sick man loses a shift. A healthy one wins a war. At the newly opened Permanente Hospital, the first of its kind, Doctors in white coats tend to welders burned by molten steel and riveters suffering from smoke inhalation. Across the street, children play in a makeshift nursery as their mothers pull 10-hour shifts at the assembly lines. A handwritten sign hangs above the entrance. For the builders of liberty, Kaiser's care system will later evolve into something entirely new. America's first large-scale health network. But for now, it's just another cog in the machine of efficiency. By mid-1943, his empire has expanded beyond Richmond. Shipyards in Oregon, Washington, and even Louisiana hum with the same precision. Each follows the Kaiser formula: modular design, continuous labor, and industrial morale. The numbers are staggering. Over 1,500 Liberty ships launched. Hundreds more tankers, repair ships, troop carriers. Entire convoys born from Kaiser's factories of flame and thunder. In Washington, the War Production Board calls him the Miracle Maker. In Berlin, Nazi intelligence reports complain that the Americans have learned to grow ships like corn. But the miracle isn't magic, it's math. Inside the planning office, engineers use new flow charts, adapted from automotive assembly plants, to track every step of the process. Colored pins mark delays. White chalk arrows track bottlenecks. The walls look less like a shipyard's office and more like the nerve center of a living organism. At night, floodlights bathe the shipyard in harsh brilliance. The work never stops. Across the bay, the glow is visible for miles. A halo of production lighting up the dark California sky. One welder, leaning on her torch between shifts, wipes sweat from her brow and looks up at the ships towering above her. "We're building history," she says quietly. And she's right. On the other side of the Pacific, convoys loaded with tanks, jeeps, and rations steam toward Australia, toward the Philippines, toward the islands soon to be fought over in blood. In the Atlantic, Liberty ships form the arteries that keep Britain alive. Every crate of food, every bullet, every soldier who lands on European soil arrives on one of Kaiser's ships. Each hull number is a lifeline. Each name, a promise. In the Admiralty, British officers marvel at the supply chain. "They don't just build ships," one commander says. "They build momentum." The Germans notice too. The U-boat war, once their proudest weapon, begins to crumble. There are simply too many ships now, too many convoys. For every freighter sunk, two more take its place. The ocean, once a hunting ground, has turned into an assembly line of steel and defiance. And at the heart of it all stands Henry Kaiser, the man who turned shipbuilding into science. One evening, as the sun sets over the bay, he watches yet another Liberty ship slip into the water. The name gleams on the bow in the last light of day: SS John W. Brown. Reporters crowd around him, eager for quotes. One asks, "Mr. Kaiser, how long do you think it'll take before ships like this can't be built any faster?" Kaiser smiles, tired but sure. "You can always build faster," he says. "You just have to believe it's possible." As the ship's horn bellows across the water, echoing through the hills of Richmond, no one doubts him anymore. Because in a world consumed by destruction, Henry Kaiser has created something extraordinary. A weapon made not of steel or fire, but of pure, relentless creation. August 1944. Richmond, California. The war has changed. Europe burns toward liberation. The Pacific closes like a steel fist around Japan. And from the decks of Liberty ships built by Henry Kaiser's workers, the endless convoys continue to move. Silent rivers of steel crossing oceans, carrying the heartbeat of a nation that refuses to slow down. The shipyard no longer sounds like chaos. It sounds like confidence. Riveters strike in rhythm. Cranes swing in unison. The sparks of welders shower like constellations against the twilight. For the men and women of Kaiser's empire, this is no longer an experiment. It's a crusade. Every weld a bullet, every hull a victory, the banners read. Kaiser's name has become legend. He is called the Miracle Man of Production by Time magazine. His shipyards, once dismissed as reckless, now define America's industrial warfare. Yet behind the myth stands a man still restless, still unsatisfied. He walks the Richmond docks late one night, the smell of salt and oil in the air, his reflection caught in the black sheen of the water. Around him, ships wait like sleeping giants, gray hulls lined in perfect rows, names stenciled in white. Liberty, victory, fortitude. He lights a cigar and turns to his foreman. "We've built faster than anyone thought possible," he says. "But can we build smarter?" The foreman blinks. "Smarter, sir?" Kaiser gestures toward the ships. "These vessels feed armies, move empires. But imagine if we could do for peacetime what we've done for war." The foreman doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The idea lingers in the night like the distant hum of machinery. By late 1944, the Liberty ship has become the unsung hero of the war. 441 feet of steel and endurance, simple but unstoppable. The Navy calls them ugly ducklings, but sailors call them lifelines. In convoy after convoy, Liberty ships sail through storms, ice, and submarine-infested waters. Some sink, most endure. The war's outcome no longer hinges on courage alone, but on capacity, the ability to keep moving, keep building, keep supplying. And Henry Kaiser has given America that power. In one of the Washington War Department's final reports on ship production, an admiral writes, "The Liberty ship program has achieved the impossible. A vessel that once required 230 days to build is now completed in under a week." The Kaiser system has proven not only that war can be industrialized, but that democracy itself can outproduce tyranny. Kaiser receives the telegram in his office. He reads it silently, then folds it neatly and places it inside his pocket. Outside, the shipyard whistle blows. Another shift change. He watches the workers pour through the gates. Welders with blackened faces, women in overalls, young men just back from training, old machinists with grease-stained hands. He sees their exhaustion, their pride, their quiet understanding that what they're doing matters more than most of them will ever know. He steps onto a wooden crate and raises his voice. "You've done what the world said couldn't be done," he shouts. "You've built ships faster than any navy, any empire, any machine in history. And because of that, men will live. And freedom will move forward." The crowd cheers, their helmets lifted high, the sound echoing through the canyons of cranes and smokestacks. For a moment, even the thunder of industry pauses. But Kaiser's mind is already elsewhere. He's thinking about housing. The hundreds of thousands of workers who built his ships but have nowhere to go. He's thinking about medicine. The permanente doctors who kept his people alive through exhaustion and injury. He's thinking about the world after the war, when the floodlights go dark and the sparks fade. And America must find a new purpose for its strength. He sees it all. Homes, hospitals, industries reborn for peace. "Tomorrow," he murmurs to his secretary that night, "we'll start building a different kind of ship." She looks up. "A different kind, sir?" He nods. "A ship that never sails, but carries a nation forward." On VJ Day, when the war finally ends, Richmond's shipyard erupts into celebration. Whistles scream, workers embrace, flags wave from the cranes. For the first time in years, the air is filled not with the clang of metal, but with laughter. Henry Kaiser stands on the balcony of his office, watching the river of people below. Reporters surround him, notebooks open. "Mr. Kaiser," one calls, "what do you think your legacy will be?" Kaiser smiles faintly. Legacy? He repeats. There is no legacy. There's only what comes next. He glances toward the docks, where the last Liberty ship, her hull glinting in the sunlight, waits for launch. We proved that America could build faster than war could destroy. Now, he says, turning toward the horizon, we'll see if it can build faster than peace can forget. In the years that follow, Kaiser would turn his shipyard medicine program into Kaiser Permanente, his worker housing projects into model communities, his industrial empire into a cornerstone of post-war innovation. The Liberty ships would sail for decades, some scrapped, some sunk, some still afloat. Quiet monuments to the moment when speed, will, and unity became the sharpest weapons of all. And in the archives of the U.S. Maritime Commission, one document still bears his signature, stamped in black ink. Objective: build ships faster than war can sink them. It's not just a line from history. It's a challenge, one that still echoes through every factory, every dockyard, every heartbeat of human ambition. Because Henry Kaiser didn't just build ships. He built momentum. He built belief. He built the idea that when ordinary people move together, nothing, not even war, can hold them back.